Good morning. We'll call the Kennedy County Board of Commissioners meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Morning, everybody. It's September 16th, 2024, our second board meeting of the month. Welcome anybody who's watching, and if you're missing this, thinking it's tomorrow, you're going to have to watch the replay. We had to move the meeting because a couple of us are traveling. First order of business today is to approve the agenda. And the first item on the agenda, I would like to move to, let's move it to after the, just before Michelle Hansen's tax forfeited property. So at 9:30, after the supplemental nutrition program, our presenter entered our address in her GPS and ended up in a residential area, so she's running a little bit late.
I'll move approval of the agenda with that adjustment.
Commissioner Gardner moves the agenda with the change for the first item of the agenda, of the general agenda. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Dwayne Anderson seconds. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Second item of the agenda is your consent items. You all received that in your packet. And so the consent items are the approval of the September 3rd County Board legal minutes, the approval of the auditor's warrants and claims, the approval of human services warrants and claims, Minnesota Office of Traffic Safety enforcement grant, a routine grant, and then the appointment of commissioners to the 2024 Canvassing Board, Resolution 2024-29. All in favor of the, anybody wish to remove anything from the consent agenda? If not, I'd seek approval for the consent agenda.
I'll move approval of the consent agenda.
Commissioner Dale Anderson moves on the consent agenda and the items therein. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that, Mr.
Commissioner Dwayne Anderson seconds. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay. Up first is a letter of support for the National Telecommunications Information Administration, otherwise alphabetized as NTIA. Michelle Maratsky, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to be here this morning. About 5 weeks ago, NTIA, the National Telecommunications and Information Administration, released the Digital Equity Competitive Grant Program. The minimum grant request is $5 million with a 10% match. So by the time you factor in the $5 million, it's about $556,000. That can be cash or in kind. The deadline to submit this grant is September 23rd, next Monday. So they don't give us a lot of time to get our ducks in a row. However, we've got a plan. It should be noted that this grant cannot be used for infrastructure development. Consider it beyond the fiber work. So over the past few weeks, KCED staff has been busy working with a variety of stakeholders to consider a plan for this application. There are 5 categories that we consider for this application. The first is economic stability, including workforce development and employment opportunities. There's access to quality education, access to healthcare, social and civil engagement, and community access to the benefits of internet technology. So a work plan has been created that includes projects for each of those 5 categories, including a local fiber tech training program. The nearest one is in Mitchell, South Dakota. Census 2030 efforts are included, mental and physical health care, community education activities, and procuring a county-wide digital opportunity plan. While we're still developing this grant application because it has a lot of moving parts, it is possible that something may come up where it just isn't feasible to submit the application. However, work done on it is not wasted time. We have a framework for future work in this space and can pursue smaller sources of funding to accomplish the work plan. Additionally, a grant request to USDA was submitted a few weeks ago for $135,000 to develop the countywide digital opportunity plan. There was no match for that request, so it was pretty straightforward. No timeline on when we'll hear about that one, though. So I'm just here today to request a letter of support from the Kandiyohi County Board of Commissioners that recognizes the importance of this work and acknowledges the impact and value that a grant such as this would have on the businesses and residences of Kandiyohi County. This letter of support is, of course, contingent upon the feasibility of the grant application. I'll take any questions.
Any questions for Ms. Maratsky?
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Commissioner Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Michelle, good morning. Couple of questions. You've mentioned that there are these 5 broad areas, and is it your sense that the folks who are going to be looking at these applications want something that is going to touch all 5 of those points, or is it potentially better to concentrate on 1 or 2 of them? And I suspect that the fiber technician training one is a really important one for us that might actually have some legs to it.
Yes.
And the second. Well, go ahead with that. And then
Okay.
I'll ask my
So to
second.
answer your first question, that is definitely something that we thought about right away. We brought this to our broadband committee as well. And you are exactly right. The fiber tech training program, we are working with our local partner to establish something like that. They're looking into the feasibility, the cost. That would be the bulk of it. And that's why I put the caveat of if we don't have that part, this probably isn't the right time to apply for such a grant. But they're working on it. They're diligently going through. So I'm just operating as this will go through. And then the other activities all are, as far as what the reviewers think, we never know. Some may take one stance, others may take another. In my mind, having those other activities really shows how we're going to stretch those dollars throughout the entire county and even beyond. I have submitted letters of request to our neighboring counties, just asking for their support, because just because we develop maybe a community ed training program, right, it doesn't mean that we're going to tell someone in Swift County they can't use it. We're happy to share that information and happy to bring them in as partners and stakeholders as well.
Sure. And then the second question is, because I was a little confused by what I was seeing in our packet. Is there a specific dollar ask that that you're looking for as a part of this letter today?
Well, one of the challenges we have with this is we cannot use federal funds for our match. So we have some money in our broadband fund with ARPA. And at this time, if there was a dollar amount that the commissioners are comfortable with, we would love to see that as well. I did not include that intentionally because I know budgets, you're right in that budget season as well. And budgets are always tight. So because we can use in kind as well, I've left that a little bit more flexible.
Okay. And you and Administrator Baker have had conversations on this. Okay.
Yes, she's been a great help in.
Okay. Then I'll leave it to the 2 of you to flesh that out for the rest of the board. Then thank you.
Super.
Commissioner Gardner.
Oh, thank you, Commissioner Gardner.
Gardner,
And I had the same question too, but to flesh this out, then you're going to state if we're going to sit down, we can delete that paragraph.
Correct.
So you're coming up with a recommendation now. Well, I'll just listen to hear what you say. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Anybody else have questions? So I guess I would, again, we're one of these that, when is the deadline?
Next Monday.
So again, one that we don't have the luxury of actually really studying this thing to see when we, what we want to do with it. And to be fair about this grant is that the BEAD grant, the BEAD Act requires a percent to be spent on digital equity. So if we don't put an application, it won't harm us for not doing it, but it doesn't affect the amount of money that will actually go for putting fiber in the ground.
Correct.
And so it's not doing anything to harm the build out, but the question will be, our budget is relatively set, and we have a few dollars left in the ARPA, so we'd have to say, and what is the percent of the match?
10%.
10%.
Yeah.
All right.
So it comes out, when you calculate it all out, about $556,000. And I would see the bulk of that coming from the fiber tech training program partner.
The bulk of the
The match. Yeah, probably in kind, space use, things like that. Yeah.
So it's going to be difficult to pick a number.
Mhm.
So I'll let Administrator Baker comment on this as well, if you have a comment.
Thank you. Yeah, I think Michelle and I talked a few different numbers. Maybe starting out at 50,000, if you'd be comfortable with 25,000. I do think this type of grant, the information in there, if this were to be feasible, this would be a really great opportunity for Ridgewater. If we were able to do this, not only just for Candioi County, but for, like Michelle was saying, for the surrounding counties to be able to continue that build out. And so I think it would be so that's why in talking with Michelle, it would be contingent upon if Ridgewater College was able to make this training program feasible. If they're not, then I think we would have to reconsider if we would want to submit the grant still. And that would, because of the longevity of this opportunity. And so I think if the board wanted to start maybe the considerations with the 25,000 match, with a 50,000 match, 100,000, if that would be appropriate. And so I think those were some options that we had thought of. The dollar amount could also, you could put that in your motion as well, the dollar amount would be contingent upon this program being able to come to fruition.
Commissioner Bird.
So we could say something and put it any way we want to. In a sense, we would be interested in contributing a minimum of 25,000, with the understanding that we seriously look going forward. But right now, we're very supportive and want to be involved in this. This is a letter of support, so it's not an official contract, right?
Correct.
So.
Correct. And could I just add with?
You're answering this question. Yeah.
Yes. So also looking at opportunities, this is just a letter of support, but there are some potential opportunities coming down that if this doesn't pan out to be feasible and we don't apply for it, there are some other opportunities that funding could still from the board be requested.
Commissioner Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So do we need to put a number in this letter?
It helps with the application.
Okay, and ask Administrator Baker, have you, I'm sure you have some sort of idea as to where that would be coming out of the budget from?
I would use the general revenue reserves.
Okay, all right.
So that was sort of answers the question I had too, is because the last item on our agenda today is to approve a preliminary budget, and that wasn't in the budget.
But being able to use it out of general revenue doesn't really impact that action later today, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
These would be our reserves. That's just the budget.
Yeah. If I may continue.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I see a great opportunity within this, especially with the Ridgewater piece, and I was glad to hear Chair Imdek mentioned that there is a portion of this that has to go towards the digital equity, and I was glad to hear that. I would offer up a motion contingent upon a successful application being determined to be able to be made, that we commit $50,000, and this is a multi-year commitment, correct?
It is. So your $50,000 would actually be spread out over 4 years. Or if you wanted to do 50,000 per year, that makes the application even stronger.
Well, let's have some fun with that discussion then, and save for now $50,000 per year for those 4 years. Was
Correct.
it?
Correct.
Okay. And I would offer up that motion in the hopes that we would have some discussion.
So we have a motion on the floor to approve $50,000 per year for 4 years as a matching grant for this application. So if I'm doing my math right, that would qualify for $2 million unless there's other monies that come in from, say, Ridgewater. Am I correct in that?
200,000.
200,000, yeah.
We're doing 200,000, that's 10%.
Right. And then I have also spoken with the operations director for the city of Wilmer, Kyle Box, as well. So we were looking at some opportunities with funding from them as well. And then, of course, Bridgewater. And then also other partners that we have engaged with, Centricare, UCAP, the library system. Yeah.
Okay, so everybody understand the motion? All right, I'd entertain a second. Well, there is no second with a five-member board. We're still allowed to have discussion. So I'll open up the floor for discussion.
Mr. Chair? Yeah.
Commissioner Berg.
4 years is a long ways down the road too. So if I understand this right, if we did 50,000 and then we could still continue the possibility of doing that next year or another 50 or whatever after this.
I believe.
And our options would still be pretty much the same or not?
Well, I believe right now the motion would be the 50,000 to support this grant. So if that were approved, then it would be 50,000 dedicated for the next 4 years,
would be.
right to this. Now, if this grant does not proves to not be feasible and we do not apply for it, we could come back and say, well, we have this entire work plan, and we could do, ask for an amount each year individually or by project.
If I,
I think the motion is for the match, not for
To the-
leaving it in a pool for further work down the road.
Right.
Strictly for the match.
Yes.
if I may, Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
I would recommend doing the 50. I think if you did the 50,000 and that felt comfortable with the whole board, I would do it 50,000 in for full 4 years. I think that shows commitment from the county. Michelle also ran this through the broadband committee meeting, which I was unable to attend. And so I think 50,000 over the total of 50,000 in 4 years.
So I'm gonna stop you there because I don't remember that recommendation coming out of the broadband committee.
No, this was just discussed at the broadband.
I was
committee.
there, and Commissioner Anderson was there.
Not the dollar
But
amount,
we,
the
we
topic.
sorry, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
so we did discuss this grant.
Yes.
Right.
We didn't come up with any kind of dollar amount because it was pretty much brand new, right? I mean. it
Right.
popped up.
Yeah. We'd only had it for a week and a half or so.
And you know,
Well, just so I understand Kelsey rates, you're saying a total of 50,000 spread out over 4 years is what you're saying. Okay.
Each year.
No, that's not what Kelsey said. She said.
Oh, you just said spread out.
50,000 over 4 years.
any other comments? And I'm far more comfortable with that than $50,000 per year because we don't even know any level of commitment from any other partners. And certainly there are other beneficiaries to this,
Mhm.
Especially Ridgewater College, because they could set up a whole curriculum of offerings for their for students, which would be one of the goals. The motion on the floor is for $50,000 per year for 4 years.
Motion died for lack of a second, but I would be happy to.
Actually,
offer
you don't need a second, but if you want to amend your own, you need, in a 5-member board, you don't need a second.
Let's do this then. Let's offer the motion again with that same contingency for $50,000 over the 4 years.
Spread over 4 years. So now we have a motion on the floor to offer, seconds are nice, but they're not necessary. Motion on the floor to spread a $50,000 match over a period of 4 years.
Mr. Chair, I'll second that.
Commissioner Berg seconds. Any further discussion?
Mr.
Go
Chair,
ahead.
just to make a comment, I feel more comfortable with this than making a commitment for 50,000 3 years from now and another 50 for another 4 years from now, without knowing our financial position at that time.
And I would add, is there anybody else that has anything they want to add before we vote? And I would add that I believe my back of the envelope math says there's about $30,000 left in ARP funds. 35,000.
We can't use those though.
Can't use
Oh,
it.
that's right. They're federal dollars. That's correct. Okay. Any other comments? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. Very much appreciate it.
Oops. Next on the agenda, solid waste, a resolution from Solid Waste Management, resolution 2024-28. Mr. Gear.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gary Gear, Environmental Services Director, here this morning for what the chair just identified as the solid waste management tax market price. And this is an annual action that the board takes. Staff reviews the market price in the area, what would be available to us, because the statute requires a political subdivision that subsidizes solid waste services below the cost of their market price to pay the solid waste management tax on the difference. So that's what we're establishing the difference between. So with the attached resolution, you can see that the market price proposed for 2025 is $61.65 per ton, and staff would be recommending that you approve the resolution declaring that price for calendar year 2025.
So you heard the recommendation from staff under resolution 2024 I lost it there, 28 regarding the solid waste management fee. How do you wish to proceed?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve resolution number 2024-28.
So Commissioner Dwayne Anderson moves on resolution 2024-28. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Commissioner Dale Anderson seconds. Any discussion?
Yeah, I have a question then. Is that okay?
Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. So we would set this at 61.65 per ton. What are surrounding counties? Are we above, below? I'm just kind of curious. Well, this is calculated off of our nearest. It isn't so much because there are very few other counties that have landfills, right around us. So it's on us having our landfill is why we are proposing this. That's the only basis as to why we have to establish a market price. And then it's based off the fuel price to get us from here to Spruce Ridge and Glencoe, because that's our nearest landfill to deliver to. So those are the two pieces to establish this market price. And the fuel price stayed the same this year. It was the tipping fee at Spruce Ridge that went up just a little bit. So I think we're approximately $2 up from last year.
Okay. And that was my question too, is what are difference?
Yeah, just a smidge. And it's a pass-through dollars, of course, because we're paying the tax. So we're collecting it, but passing it through to the state.
Any other questions? Comments? All right, hearing none, all in favor of resolution 2024-28, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Both same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Next up, presentation on the supplemental nutrition program for women, infants, and children. Jody and Heather, are you going to be joining? Welcome. And state your name and who you represent for the record.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Jody Ammerman, and I'm one of the public health supervisors.
And I'm Heather Thiessen, and I'm from Fort County.
Welcome.
So thank you for having us. We are celebrating 50 years of our public health program, WIC. And most of you are familiar with the WIC program, but we hope this morning you can learn a little bit more details about the WIC program. This last county fair, our public health booth highlighted our WIC program, and it was interesting because I would ask everyone that came through, are you familiar with the WIC program? And pretty much everybody said yes. So WIC has been around for 50 years. It is well known, and it's really a public health program that we're very proud of. So what is WIC? WIC stands for Women, Infants, and Children. Thank you. And serves infants, children up to age 5, pregnant and breastfeeding women, and non-breastfeeding postpartum women up to 6 months. And other guardians can apply for WIC on behalf of their infants and children. So we welcome fathers, we welcome grandparents, adoptive and foster parents as well. It is a nutrition and breastfeeding program that helps families eat well and stay healthy. So we provide nutrition education. We provide breastfeeding support and education. All of our CPAs are trained in breastfeeding education. We do health screenings and referrals. So we do heights and weights and hematocrits, BMIs, and refer. So we collaborate with other resources in the community. We refer to primary caregivers. We refer to our family home visiting program as well. So a lot of referrals come into public health through our WIC program for serving families. It also is a supplemental nutritional program, so we do provide healthy foods, including fruits and vegetables. And this last year, that has increased and is staying there.
Permanently there.
It started during the pandemic where they increased the fruits and vegetables, and now it is permanent. So that is good. Families love having more fruits and vegetables. Also, milk, cheese, yogurt, whole grains, bread, cereal, oatmeal, pasta, tortillas, brown rice. Proteins are beans, peanut butter, and eggs, 100% juice, and infant cereal, fruits, vegetables, and formula. So that's basically what WIC does and provides. But more importantly, what they also provide is wonderful service from our staff. So I would just really like to highlight Heather is our WIC coordinator, and she just knows the program inside and out, has a wealth of nutrition information, and is wonderful with the team and also with the participants. Our staff, we have a staff of 9 with varying degrees of education, but they all are dedicated, knowledgeable, and most of all, I would say, caring. They truly care about the participants that come through our doors. So I would just like to highlight Heather. We have Jennifer Bernstein. She is our program support. She's been with us for 28 years, so we have a lot of longevity. Heather, 19 years. Tammy Berg, she is a nutritionist, 17 years. And Bobby Joe Berg, a health educator, 15 years. Samantha Westbrock, public health nurse, 5 years. Kate Prentice, public health nurse, 5 years. Brandy Groff, public health nurse, 2 years. Linda Aguirre, program support, 4 years. And then Karen Ampey was with us for 15 years. She just retired this last month. And now we have Alicia Olson. So a lot of different people from different parts of public health that do WIC with also many other different roles that they do in public health. So a little of our WIC history. So WIC started as a pilot project with doctors prescribing healthy food as medicine. So this is back in the 1970s. At that time, they were seeing prominent high levels of iron deficiency anemia, undergrowth in infants and children with low weights and heights, and low-income mothers were vulnerable to poor nutrition. The first clinic opened in January 15th, 1974 in Pinewood, Kentucky, and by the end of the year, WIC was operating in 45 states, including Minnesota. So WIC today. Minnesota is one of the top 5 states in the nation for enrolling eligible families. This is according to the Minnesota Department of Health. And nearly 2/3, 65.7% of those eligible for Minnesota WIC participants participated in the program. This is in 2022. And the national rate is 53.5%. So we are above the national rate in Minnesota. Nearly 95% of eligible Minnesota infants receive WIC benefits in 2022. And in Candy, Ohio, according to our annual report last year, 2023, Our county average monthly participation was 1,576, with October being our busiest month, 1,636 women, infants, children served. And in 2023, 1,421,500 WIC benefits were redeemed in the county. So we have a large program. We serve a lot of families and participants. Our overall goals, what we strive for is healthy pregnancies, births, and children. All about the kids. So we want to reduce low birth weight babies, premature infants, reduce the incidence of low iron anemia, increase access to prenatal care, like those referrals to a primary care provider, increase key nutrients, iron, protein, calcium, vitamins, increase immunization rates. That's another thing that we can refer to our immunization program, and access to regular health care. Increase breastfeeding rates. We support healthy diets, infant feeding practice to prevent obesity and anemia. So that was one thing, today, is to prevent the obesity and still with the anemia. Throughout the years, there's been lots of studies, and it shows that WIC works. One study found every dollar spent on WIC during the prenatal period saved $1.24 to $6.83 in Medicaid cost for newborn infants, according to MD. So a lot of people know how do I qualify? So we have a new brochure out, and I will leave that with you. And they've gone to a QR code. So this is really easy for our participants to scan the code. It brings up the eligibility requirements. And you can also register online. One thing I want to point out is you are automatically income eligible for WIC if you are currently participating in the following programs. And just recently with the medical assistant, when people are applying for medical assistant, there is a prompt there, a link to also apply for other programs, including WIC. So that's nice. We recently had our financial program on human services side come over to WIC and talk with our WIC staff and view our WIC clinic. And it's nice to be able to go back and forth. We refer people to them, they refer people to us. So families that are a medical assistant, SNAP, AMFib, emergency assistant program, reduced lunch, Head Start, SSI, supplemental security income, or medical assistance under the TEFRA. They have children with disabilities and they are not eligible for MA. They would still qualify for WIC. So WIC matters. We just are so thankful. I'm so thankful for our staff, our WIC team. They see a lot of families come through the door. They build a lot of relationships with these families, experience a lot of the highlights of parenting, and then, some hard things. Parenting can be hard as well, too. And our team is just extraordinary. I mean, we have such a great team with a great leader. Heather does an amazing job. She is knowledgeable, and she's the go-to person for her team and also for the participants. So we got some quotes from some of our participants, and I'll read them. The WIC program and staff have been super helpful over the years when we really needed it. As a family, we're so appreciative of the healthy foods we get, especially with the current food costs. If it wasn't for WIC, we had never known that our daughter's hemoglobin was dangerously low and how to improve it through diet and supplementation. Today, she's a happy, healthy, and smart little girl. Your smiles, laughter, knowledge, and education that you have given me over the years have made it easy to be a part of the WIC program. What I have learned from you, I will carry with me forever. I truly appreciate the knowledge. God bless you all. Here's our team. This is, we are missing one. We're missing Samantha, our public health nurse. Hard to get everyone together for a current picture. We usually take a Christmas one, but that was outdated. So here's the team and our contact information. Please stop by. We're hoping to have an open house and celebrate 50 years of WIC before the end of the year. Right now, all staff are getting trained in a new software, Winnie, so this is a big deal. We've had our old software for 15, 20 years, so right now staff are getting trained in this new, we have 24 hours of training for this new software. After that will be rolling out mid-October. We would like to have an open house and invite you and the community to come and celebrate us. We might have some cake. We're happy to answer any questions.
Heather, do you have anything you'd like to add to what Ms. Zimmerman has
No, she did a
presented?
great job presenting everything. I just wanted to make sure that she mentioned, too, I know a lot of referrals within public health back to each other, but we are also in really good connection with family services and making sure families are getting connected with those services for insurance, for food stamps, or anything like that. The guidelines are equivalent. They qualify for that. And they qualify
Can
for
you
us.
step up to the mic,
Yes,
please?
absolutely. So yeah, we do a lot of collaborating across the board within public health and human services, but we have a great supervisor also who's been here to back us up and to help us along the way too. So I know she gives a lot of credit to me, but it also goes back to the supervisor and staff.
Ms. Thiessen, we are on YouTube, so
Yes.
being you stepped up a little late, announce who you are for
Oh,
some of
yep.
these.
I'm Heather Thiessen. I am the Canada County Coordinator.
Thank you. Any questions?
If I may. Heather, do you want to explain, sorry, this is really loud. Do you want to explain the new rooms that were
Yes.
newly?
Yes,
Wanna
during
talk a little bit
COVID,
about that?
or just before COVID, I had applied for a grant to renovate our WIC area to allow larger room sizes, larger hallways. We have a lot of large families, make it more ADA acceptable and things like that. So we applied for this and it worked out well. During COVID, when nobody was there, we got it, and we did a total renovation project while we were doing everything over the phone remotely. So it worked out very, very, very nicely. And now that we have families coming back in, we have much more space. It's much more sanitary, cleanly, and like I said, much more ADA acceptable. Yeah.
Great. Commissioner Berg.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. And when I look at the information, it gave us like $1.4 million in benefits were redeemed here. And the program, I've known it for years. I think we all have, like you said. It's an excellent program, and it's really well needed. Can you or Administrator Baker expand any more on the funding of the program? Is it mostly federal dollars?
It's mostly
Okay,
federal dollars.
right.
Yes. I mean,
Is there a percentage of that?
Well, it's based on per participant. So we are allowed so much money per participant to get reimbursed on a monthly basis. So depending on the number of clients or participants we serve, we get reimbursed for that. So it's about
And it is
$20
part of the
per participant.
and it is part of the egg bill.
Yeah.
Supplemental nutrition.
Okay. So I got a
Commissioner Dwayne.
question. I think I know the answer, but just for clarity. So when they get like an EBT card, right, for purchasing food, if they try to buy junk food with that, it does get rejected. So
There's limitations.
okay.
There's only certain foods that are allowed with the WIC program. And fortunately and unfortunately, for some may think that it is only healthy and very nutritious foods. It's not, and I'm not putting down like the SNAP program. You're not allowed to get whatever you would like to get. You are only allowed to get whole grains, fruits and vegetables, healthy low-fat milks and dairy products and things like that. So the WIC program, yes, we do healthy foods, but we also have some accountability too. We have families coming in on a regular basis, typically every 3 months, to see us so we can assess and have conversations with them and just make sure that they're getting the education that they need, whether it's nutrition, whether it's breastfeeding, or just support. Sometimes people just need to talk.
Thank you.
Yes.
Commissioner Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Heather and Jody, thank you so much. And first of all, congratulations on 50 years of this program. It's truly making a difference in the lives of children and families. And I was glad to hear you mention that you make those other connections as well. And I assume one of the programs that you would be making a connection with for some of these folks would be for the Supporting Hands Nurse Family Partnership,
Absolutely.
which helps follow folks through from for basically the better until a child is 2 years old. And all of these efforts are intended to make sure that our families and children are healthy and getting off to a good start in life. And couldn't ask for any more than that. Thank you so much.
Commissioner Dale Anderson.
Well, I guess I don't have a question. I got more of a comment. I mean, this is a great program. I'll be honest. When our kids were young, we were on WIC. It was a great opportunity for us back then to do that. I just hope that everybody isn't afraid of being involved in WIC because you don't have to feel bad because you're involved in WIC. It's actually a great program to get some great information and some help when you're young. And I really thank you guys for taking and doing this. It's a great program and it really does help people. So that's my only thing is I just hope people reach out and are brave enough to say, hey, this would be a good thing because it is a good thing and they don't have to feel bad for being on WIC.
Thank you. I appreciate that comment. I think that's something really important to hear. I think a lot of families have an idea of what the county or benefits that we can do, and they don't want to take that step forward. But I do feel with WIC, they don't feel that as much. I feel like and I don't know if that's just the WIC program in general or if that's what our agency has done here. People feel very welcome to come in and they don't feel like they have to be getting in trouble, especially if they're here legally. People know that they're welcome here and we're going to help them and serve them no matter what.
Well, the numbers speak for themselves. I mean, it's 65 and change percent participation rate. That's outstanding. Are there other organizations that help bring awareness to the program for recipients? Like I'm thinking like Extension. They used to have an educator, SNAP
We have a
educator.
lot through the community. I would say mostly through the hospitals and clinics, through Hope Pregnancy, UCAP. I mean, all these programs, we're all very connected with all of them to make sure that we're all collaborating and helping each other out, encouraging participation in any of these programs. So the state also sends out quarterly to anybody who right now is MA eligible. We'll shoot out a mass text message or email or whatever, just connecting, and sometimes we'll even do mail, just letting know participants are eligible. And usually we see a nice little uptick in call-ins or online applications to set people up for appointments because that is a huge nudge.
Mm-hmm. And the medical providers. I feel like Heather has a really
Yep.
good connection with the doctors in town.
And again, to Commissioner Dale Anderson's point is that we want people to go on to take part in WIC because it saves us money. That investment, I always used to hear the word $3 return for every dollar spent. I think you have a fairly wide range, but if I average that range, it was $4. Whatever, it's pretty significant, and so we're all better off if more people participate in the WIC program because it results in healthier kids and kids that are able to learn better at school and just develop better. So appreciate all the work you do and thank you for coming in.
For your time.
We'll take a quick 5-minute break and then we'll resume with the next item. We will reconvene the Kennewick County Board of Commissioners. Next up on the agenda is an item we moved at the beginning of the session. We have a letter of support request from AMP Swift for the AMP Swift Renewable Natural Gas Project. And our presenter today is Michelle Schmitz from XL Energy Community Relations. Welcome, Ms. Schmitz.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Morning.
My name is Michelle Schmitz, and I'm a Community Relations Manager for Excel Energy. I manage 75 cities and 11 counties, and Kennewick County is one of my counties. I began in this role about 5 months ago, and my primary office location is out of St. Cloud, but I am a resident of Painesville, so I know the area a little well. I have some handouts that I've passed out and have sent to you that kind of shares a little bit about my contact information and my primary responsibilities with the role that I do. And my primary reason here is to introduce myself so that you know who I am. I took over from my predecessor who retired after 33 years in December. So I don't know if you worked with Mark Ussendorf or not, but he retired in December. And the role is, I want to be a point person so that you can reach out so that you don't get stuck sitting on a 1-800 line like some folks that have reached out to me said that they've had heavy call lines, and especially with the storms this summer. The secondary reason for my visit today is to ask for your support regarding 4 projects within our National Gas Innovation Act plan and the AMP America Swift's renewable gas project will consist of 4 projects working with Riverview to collect, treat, and compress biodigester gas from 4 dairy farms, one being in Kennewick County. The gas will then be injected into Dooley's petroleum pipeline before entering the Alliance pipeline. We are looking to reduce methane emissions and believe this will provide numerous benefits to Kennewick County to contribute to the overall economic vitality of the region. So you have documents in front of you, and if you have questions, I provided additionally a sample letter that you, this is something you are interested in, whether it be individually or as collectively, you can take and edit and modify as you see fit. So thank you for your time today.
So if I'm clear about this, you were looking for support to be presented to the Public Utilities Commission regarding the movement of gasoline from the Dooley's pipeline to the Alliance pipeline, or exactly?
For the whole process, basically the support of being able to, support the entire process.
It really doesn't have anything to do with the dairy's digesters, though.
Well, the process.
I mean, they have to sell their gas.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
They have to get in the pipeline order. Mm-hmm. But this is not looking for the approval of the AMPS project. Or is the Public Utilities Commission going to be looking at that as well?
I think they want to know the background and how that, what is the issues that are going to be faced and how is it going to be reducing the methane emissions. And I think essentially having the background of what these products are, the farms are, is going to essentially then give them the idea of how we are working together with that.
In Public Utilities PUC, they govern public pipelines and transmission lines and that, right?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
And to see the public and private connection, I think, is important to them. So,
all right. So you've heard Ms. Schmidt's presentation. Any questions for her? And I think that Commissioner Gardner.
If you wanted to say something first.
No, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Michelle, thank you for being here today. Help me out a little bit and help, I think, for the public as well. You're with XL Energy, and is this an XL Energy project, or who are exactly the players here?
Well, the players would be the Riverview folks, and then XL Energy, and then Dooley's to basically.
I'm sorry, I can't hear.
The players would be Riverview LLP, XL Energy, and then Dooley's Petroleum working together.
Okay, and the XL involvement comes about
through the Alliance pipeline and through the reduction of emissions.
Okay, and that's your pipeline, or
the Alliance? Yes.
Okay, I guess because knowing that XL is a publicly traded company,
mm-hmm.
I'm just trying to kind of figure out where everything's
Sure.
lying in here. Do you?
No, all questions are very good. I appreciate all questions because as someone new to this role as well, the more questions you ask, the more that I learn too. So
Sure. So, so the request essentially is for us to write a letter of support on behalf of a publicly traded company to support this project. Am I understanding that right?
yep, I can kind of pull my, I don't know if I have my draft. Yeah, so it basically would say to support 4 projects within the NGIA with the Natural Gas Initiative that Excel Energy is working with.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
And the support would be, uh, the letter of support would go to the Public Utilities Commission.
Correct. It would go to the executive secretary.
Any other questions or comments?
Chair, it certainly looks like, I like that one sentence at the very end, vital investment in our environment, economy, and the community well-being.
Mhm.
And it seems like it checks off all those boxes, and it's really important, especially when it comes to environmental things like this and the payback for us. So I know there's sometimes concerns about pipelines and big concerns about that, but I think in the best interest of our environment, we got to support this. And I think as a board, we kind of gave the nod to that one project already. So, thank you.
So, I'm gonna ask for clarification. This is not a new pipeline, correct?
I believe there is a newly built Dooley's Petroleum Pipeline before
Dooley's.
entering the Alliance Pipeline.
Exactly. The request is for the Dooley's pipeline to inject into the Alliance pipeline.
Correct. So they would take
So there's no new
the
construction.
biodigester gas and then they would inject it into a newly built pipeline and then entering the Alliance Pipeline.
And that's the part that Public Utility Commission needs to approve is
Correct.
getting it into the Alliance pipeline.
Mhm.
That's okay. I wanted to clear that up. Commissioner Dale Anderson.
This is probably not, I guess, that important, but where does this gas really end up? Does it end up going all the way into the cities or does it end up being used locally? I mean, just curious, I guess.
No, that's a really good question. I get that question quite a bit. And unfortunately, I don't know the answer, but I'm going to seek that out and to make sure that I get that question often. We build these wind farms, we build these solar farms out here, but who's actually attaining the energy? So I appreciate the question. If you don't mind, I'd like to definitely follow up with that. And then I can share with Administrator Baker.
Other Commissioner Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just to clarify, because I noticed in our packets there are actually 2 letters, the one that Michelle brought forward, and then another one here. Can someone explain
Did
what that second letter might be?
So when I was approached by Ms. Schmitz, and then I can't remember if she sent this draft before or after, but I drafted the one that's in your packet is one that I drafted that I felt was perhaps a little more succinct, maybe quite a bit more succinct, but also was a general position that I didn't think put the county at any odds with our stay in our lane policy. We have 2 businesses involved here. One is Meadowstar Dairy and one is Dooley's Petroleum that are big employers here. And then there'll be, obviously, there's property taxes involved. So in my mind, we don't violate the stay in our lane policy. And I thought this was a letter that not everybody in the world believes in greenhouse gas emissions and the dangers it poses to the atmosphere. So this doesn't take any position in regarding that. So I just tried to make it a little bit more neutral, but still be supportive.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So our options here are one of the 2 letters, or doing nothing, or writing individual letters of support if we wish. So the request from the presenter is a letter of support. And so I'd entertain a motion if there is support for that.
Mr. Chair, you're looking at 1 or 2 letters if we do support.
I would suggest one of 2 letters, yes.
Mr. Chair, I move to support this with the letter that the Candido County Board Chair put together.
So we have a motion on the table. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Gardner seconds to send a letter of support to the Public Utilities Commissioner as drafted by the board chair and in your packet. Any further discussion? Commissioner
So
Dwayne Anderson?
just so I'm clear, we got two letters here, and you're saying the second letter in our packet is the
Oh,
one,
there's two in the packet. Yeah, the one that I drafted.
and that's the second one here.
Yep. Yeah, I would be doing, yep.
All right.
Any other comments or questions? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Well, thank you, Ms. Schmitz, for the information. And if you have any additional information, there was a couple of questions that you said you need to get back. If you'd send them to Administrator Baker, and she can disseminate that information.
I will certainly do so. Thank you for your time and have a good day.
Thank you. All right. Find my agenda back here. I think Michelle Hanson, are you up next? I believe so. Yes. Request to repurchase a tax forfeited property by a previous owner. Welcome.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the board. Michelle Hanson from the County Auditor's Office. I have two requests this morning. The first is a request from Mr. Kellerman regarding repurchasing his property that he previously owned prior to tax forfeiture. This is in Irving Township. We received a letter from him. Just briefly background, this property was forfeited to the state last fall as part of the regular tax forfeited process. There was no auction held last fall due to the revamping of the state's rules and regulations, if you will, regarding tax forfeiture. So our things have kind of been on hold. At this point, statute says that the former owner can petition the board to repurchase the property up until the time of the auction. So that's where we're at this point. Mr. Kellerman has proposed, has written a letter and proposed he is able to prepare, to pay the past due property taxes in full in order to obtain re-ownership, if you will, of the property. And so I am here to present that today. It is our recommendation that we allow him to do that. I did look at the information prior to coming over this morning, and there are property taxes owing from 2018 through the current. The 2024 taxes, of course, are abated or not taxed this year because the property is in the state's name. So those would be added back on. There would also be some fees involved in bringing this up to date and getting a deed back from the state to Mr. Kellerman if that is approved.
So you've heard staff recommendation, and for some reason I'm unable to open the letter, but staff recommendation to allow the property owner to redeem the taxes and bring them current. How do you wish to act on that?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Or rephrase the
You're
motion
referring to the
motion.
Curtis Kellerman
Yes.
property. Okay. So they pay the past property taxes, and then they pay fees, and then there's like a late penalty, right?
Right. So all of the penalties on the late property taxes need to get paid. The 2024 taxes would be put back on the property, and those would have to be paid as well. And then there is a state deed tax fee based on the purchase price, the repurchase price of the property. And then there's a deed preparation fee. Basically, they would get a deed frac from the state of Minnesota, transferring their interest in it back to Mr. Kellerman if all of those things are paid up and satisfied.
Okay. And then how long does he have to pay that now, all these fees?
So the letter that I have, he's prepared to pay it in full, not make a payment plan like we've talked about previously. So this appears to be a one and done, if you will.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Is that an option if for some reason he shows up at the last minute and says, I don't quite have it all?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that is one of the options.
Commissioner, Mr. Chair, thank you. Is there a time frame then? What was the time frame by?
So there's nothing written in his letter as far as the time frame, just that I told him I had to bring it before the board and then I would get back to him. So nothing about an extension or anything like we've had in some of the ones in the past.
Mr. Chair, just to follow up then, if I may, should we be putting a time frame, say 3 months or something on it? Would you?
We certainly
would that
could.
help you at all?
Yes, that may be helpful if you wanted to
And then we
set
can
up
always
something
come
like
back and
that.
visit it for whatever, because circumstances do change.
Right.
All right, Commissioner Gardner.
Thank you,
How
Mr.
are you?
Chair. Question on this. I'm looking at the letter and he states he's hoping to obtain ownership of the project, of the property. But is he already the owner of record on this?
No, he's the previous owner. Because of the forfeiture proceedings, the property has been put into the state of Minnesota's name.
Okay, it was that's the point of confusion for me. Thank you.
Mhm.
All right, so you've heard staff recommendation. I'd entertain a motion to accept or deny the staff recommendation.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we authorize approval of the request to repurchase tax forfeit property by this owner.
Commissioner Dwayne Anderson moves on the ability to redeem the property by the previous owner. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Commissioner Dale Anderson seconds. Any further comments or questions?
To Commissioner Berg's point about the time frame, did we want to put something on that?
I'll ask the motioners.
What would the staff recommend? 90 days?
I don't think it would be a bad idea. And 90
Yeah,
days
that's fine.
certainly
90
seems to
days.
be reasonable
Okay.
to me, but
90 days would be.
So a friendly amendment.
That's fine.
That's good. I think this is probably the right thing to do, especially in light of what's happened in the state of Minnesota in the last couple of years regarding forfeited properties. And hopefully the party can respond and be able to follow through on his request for redemption. And that 2025 will be another year where he's able to continue to move, or she able to continue to move forward. So,
sure.
any other comments or questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Michelle.
Okay, and then I have a second one as well. This is a follow-up to one that we brought forward in, I believe it was back in December. This is a party by the last name of Hanson in Wilmer. At that point, when I brought the previous letter, he had requested again to repurchase the property, but he had some conditions where he was requesting a 6-month extension on that. And we did give approval to that, partly based on the status of things where they were at with the tax forfeiture process and so on and so forth. Since that time, when the 6 months was up right around the 1st of June, and I attempted to contact this party, the phone number that I was given at the time of his original petition was no longer in service. So I did attempt a letter to him, and the letter was apparently delivered. It was not returned to us, but then I heard nothing. In the meantime now, end of August, I did receive a second letter. Actually, it came to the administrator's office here, a second letter explaining some of that background and the reasoning behind the no contact with us, essentially. He's again asking for another 6-month extension and hoping to be able to work this out on a payment plan with us, like we talked about initially, essentially a contract for deed type situation where he repaid over a number of years. So that's what I'm bringing before you today. Our recommendation is to try and attempt this again with him, but I think based on the last one, maybe a timeline of getting the ball rolling on this is probably appropriate, just given the history.
So, you heard staff recommendation on this, redemption item as well. I entertain a motion.
I have a question. Or should we do the motion?
Go ahead with the question.
Okay,
Might
so
help you
my
with-
question, what happened, or can't you get in the specifics of that? I mean, because we gave him a good opportunity. And
Right. There were some health issues that this person had, some hardships due to that. I don't know if you got a copy of this letter via email, but that was essentially the bulk of it was due to some health conditions, some health concerns that he was not able to come in and start the process.
So I also had a question. Did you have?
No, go ahead. No, I do want to say, or
The 6 month extension, is that also, and maybe I'm not understanding the 6 month. So if there is a plan in place or presented in order for him to redeem, him or her to redeem, does it start in 6 months or would it start?
I believe that's what he's asking, that the first payment wouldn't be until 6 months from now. Typically, if we do like a contract for deed situation, it's my understanding is there's so much down and then the payments become yearly from there on. I think what he's asking by the letter is if this is approved, do I have 6 months to make that first payment and start the ball rolling on the contract for deed situation
So no down payment,
in 6 months?
the down payment.
would
And how
make
much would that down payment be?
Based on the numbers that I gave him initially, some time ago, so they would be a little bit slightly different now. But the initial down payment would have been almost $3,300.
And then what would be go on an installment plan?
Yep. So it'd be an installment plan. It would be the second payment in this scenario. Again, these are from 2023, so they're a little bit skewed. But the second plan payment would have been just over $6,000. So that would be a yearly payment, and then it would be like your typical loan where you pay the most interest up front, because you would be paying interest based on the state's recommendations for tax forfeited property, along with the installment of the taxes and keeping the current year's taxes current as well.
So there would be payments on an installment plan going forward a number of years, plus whatever is due in whatever years we're moving forward.
Yep, that's part of the tax
And
forfeiture
the total
process.
delinquent amount right now is how much?
Right now, it is
32,000.
that's what it was last year. It's
So it's a little skewed.
Yeah.
$32,109.95.
Yeah.
That includes sheriff's service fees.
That's just the tax.
That was all in that document.
A lot of money. All right. The staff is recommending accepting the suggestion of terms from the letter writer moving forward. So I'd entertain a motion. Commissioner Burke.
Mr. Chair, thank you. To clarify our motion, one of the questions I have, it seems like it's been very difficult to have any face-to-face contact with this person, and it's just really been, as we saw in the notes were sent in. Can a motion address that we would need to meet that person? I'm looking to Attorney Baker. Can we put that in there that we require a face-to-face contact to make sure this is you doing this, and that you can have some conversation or dialogue about the payment plan, a little bit more details than just those notes on one page?
If I
Does
may
that make
add,
sense that this person has not, I have a feeling, had a lot of contact with people, and it's pretty well run down property.
I think to answer your question, if I may, Mr. Chair,
Mhm.
Commissioner Burke, these are two separate issues. I get where you're coming from, the well-being of this individual.
Well, but we don't know what his plan is neither, do we? Other than he plans to pay so much money. And if,
you know,
we don't know if he's if you saw it and you had a dialogue with somebody, but maybe I'm wrong on that.
I guess
And I'm
I
sure
don't know
Commissioner,
either.
or Attorney General, sir, I just promoted you. County Attorney Baker, I'm guessing that we don't really care who makes that payment as long as
Yeah.
we make the payment.
Yeah,
The money.
okay,
Would that be correct? Okay,
okay.
so, we still have a staff recommendation. Go ahead.
Well, I'd like to make a motion that we approve it, but he's asking that we approve it with review and a certain amount of, instead of 6 months, he said, he'd pay it off, that we would review it within, if there's no payment made that first month, is right, as part of the agreement, that we review it then in 1 month or 2 months. Can that be a motion?
So,
Well, I make a motion, we approve it unless we hear he has his initial payment.
well, again, correct me if I'm wrong, he would be in arrears if he misses the first payment, and then.
So
we'd
then
be-
you'll be
got-
moving
right,
on.
saving
That's,
it.
I just want to be clear. You'll be moving on that then.
So his request is to take 6 months to make that first payment, and then those payments would be made
Yeah,
yearly, is
I
the way
think-
I understand it. And so if he fails to do that, then we would have to,
We'd be back at it.
we'd be back at it, yeah.
So.
I'm feeling uncomfortable.
Commissioner Gardner, maybe you want to.
Yeah, go ahead. I want to hear from him.
You didn't really make a motion, did you?
No, I was trying to find the right motion.
I see my friend Commissioner Berg having some, I think perhaps some of the same concerns that I'm having with this. It concerns me that communication has been difficult and only one way at best. But otherwise, if we do not allow this, then this goes through the tax forfeiture process, and we discussed this at length last week in our policy committee at General Government at AMC, where most of the that was our number one priority for AMC and for my committee last year, and it is an incredibly convoluted process. I would offer that if we do this, and in 6 months we still don't have redemption, that then we would have to move into that new process. And I don't know how much different this would be. I'm trying to remember the matrix that we saw, and maybe it wouldn't be that much different than what we're doing now, but it would be at that point in time, in all honesty, time to move on. So I would make a motion to accept the recommendation of our staff.
Thank you. I was just
I will
gonna,
second
I was
it.
just gonna ask that we keep it simple and cross the bridge when we get to it,
Okay,
if it doesn't.
I will second that motion.
So we have a motion on the floor and a second to accept staff's recommendation to allow for a 6-month extension to start the indemnification period of this forfeited tax property. Am I repeating that correctly? Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those same sign. Motion carries. Thank you very much, Ms. Hanson. All right, next up on the agenda, Planning Commission recommendation from Zoning Administrator Van Dyken. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Eric Van Dyken, County Zoning Administrator here with one recommendation from the Planning Commission's meeting on September 9th. It was a rather short meeting. It was to consider the final plat of Tepetonka Village. This is the final step for the developer there to have approval to develop 9 cabin or homes for people associated with the golf course to come and stay, do their golfing. It is developed under conservation subdivision that has been approved by this board previously as basically the underlying use, and a conservation subdivision basically allows for a little bit unique type of development. In this case, they cluster the homes, and then they have some open space that they own in common. There's a declarations document that comes with that to govern their association and how they manage and provide for perpetual care and preservation of their open space. A good part of their open space for this development is their short course, their 9-hole short course. And the language around conservation subdivisions does allow for recreational uses, et cetera, to happen in that open green space. So the recommendation of the Planning Commission is to approve the final plat as presented. It does meet standards, and with that recommendation and the very short findings in the minutes, staff recommends approval.
So you've heard recommendation from staff to approve the Planning Commission plat, recommendation for the Tepetonka Village plat as presented with the findings. Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, also move.
Commissioner Dale Anderson moves. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Commissioner Dwayne Anderson seconds. Any questions or comments? Commissioner Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Eric, this is really unchanged from the preliminary.
There were a couple minor changes. The one configuration of 5 cabins had just a slight alteration in their configuration, nothing substantial. And then there was a little bit of a boundary change on the outside. Nothing again that would substantially, we typically even the process of preliminary and final approval does assume some tweaks in between. So those would be the areas that were changed. And then the declarations went through some final scrubbing based on things that I pointed out needed to be buttoned up and a few things that they wanted to change. So that would be the changes from the preliminary.
Commissioner Dale Anderson, if you have a follow-up.
Eric, if you can just maybe make it a little more clear. So this was done in a conservation district. So how much of that has to be left, like, I'll call it like native, or does any of it have to be left that way in the green area?
Thank you, Commissioner Anderson. None of it needs to be left native. The open space requirements are more, they don't specifically talk about native things. They do more with development and how the land is used, not as much about what's growing on it.
Okay.
Commissioner Bird.
Mr. Chair, thank you. You mentioned the slight boundary changes. I have 2 questions. Did they affect at all the relationship with neighbors or anything like that? And then also my second question would be the changes, even though minor, did they impact the creek at all, Shakopee Creek?
Thank you, Commissioner Berg. No, they wouldn't. I wouldn't see them as impacting the neighbors at all, or the creek. The underlying work that's going on is the same, and to everybody viewing from the outside, they wouldn't know any single difference. Underneath it all lies some lines that delineate things legally, but no people will ride by and they won't even know those lines exist, and so it wouldn't impact how they're using the property.
Thank you.
All right. We have a motion to accept staff recommendation on this plat recommendation. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Eric. All right. Up next, final payment and acceptance. Mel Odens, Public Works Director.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, what you have in front of you is a final payment and acceptance of the project that went past Eagle Creek. It was a short mile, is about 5,000 feet. I've included a path that on the north side and a mill and overlay of the road. Project was bid last July, and it was all the trail work was completed last year, and for the terms of the DNR grant, which was funded $250,000 of it. And then the rest of the mill and overlay was done through state aid and some small levy dollars. So the project's complete. It's a staff recommendation to accept the project and authorize final payment in the amount of $46,731.32. And that includes some minor items at the end, as well as retainage, the 1% retainage.
So you've heard staff recommendation on final payment for this project. I'd entertain a motion to approve.
Mr. Chair, I'll make the motion to accept the project and make the final payment to Dunix Incorporated.
Commissioner Dwayne Anderson moves. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Commissioner Dale Anderson seconds. All in favor? Oh, any comments or questions? Commissioner Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mel, there were some change orders on that were necessary, and also I know there was a little bit of angst on the friends on the part of our friends out at the golf club out there, and I think the project turned out really, really well, and I'm just hoping they felt the same way.
I have gotten very positive feedback, even from the people that might not have been a huge supporter of it, because I think what they were surprised is the public want for a trail along there, because in the early mornings or even in the evenings, people do walk it. In fact, I've had probably quite a few comments that people will go all the way, and then they'll continue even all the way down to Foxhole. So I mean, it is kind of a nice little connection through past the golf course. And in respect to the change orders, so what we did, the median is concrete. It was set up for bituminous. And in order to meet the terms of the timeline, we had flipped it to concrete for two reasons. Number one, it's a median, and it probably aesthetically looks better. And then number two, we could get it completed in the parking lot, completed, and so the Oaks could be back to business last year and not be interrupted again. As far as the other part of it, we put an apron on the end of the big storm sewer. It just had a 24-inch outlet of it was on the toward the west part of the project, and it just cleans it up, slopes it in better for a golf course. So we put a galvanized steel apron on the end. And then the other part of the change order was we did have a water that pumped up through the road, which is very unusual because you're about 3 feet above the water line, almost 42 inches. But I think what it is over vibration of the material when we were. I mean, that is what anybody that we had to investigate, because there is no water. We opened it back up. We added aggregate. We added fabric and non-issue. So that was the change orders.
I think it looks great, and seems like there's a lot of happiness over the fact that this is complete and people are using it. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Commissioner Berg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Commissioner Gardner. You're right on. This is a big deal. I've literally heard for decades that the people wanted something like this, and to actually complete it. Unfortunately, there's people kind of wished, well, it was a bit wider there or whatever. It's not ideal, but it's something completed, and I'm excited that we have that, and I'm glad it got done. Thank you for all your work on that.
Thank you. And the city is making the application to go from where you hit Business 71 down to the lights on the lake side. So I think once you can go across to the Midwest side, but you'll be able to stay on the lake side.
Mr. Chair. And that's the second half of it. I've been hearing about for decades. We needed that attachment. So you really will celebrate that.
Well, as you probably hear me talk about ad nauseum, tourism is the second biggest industry. And last night we came home in the dark from a visitation. And at 8:30 at night, someone was walking a new off-road trail that was built in our neighborhood just in the last couple of months. And I'm thinking that person would have been walking on the road and he has a tendency to do that, if he'd have been walking in the dark. And so it was a relief to me as a driver, as well as I'm sure it is to him, to walk safely. on that off-road trail, and so appreciate that. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. All right, up next, the community health assessment and top 10 priorities from Avi Sukwa, Minnesota Public. Will you explain what MPH and the public health planning process is? Welcome.
How are we all doing today?
Good.
My name is Avi Sukwal. I am the public health planner for both Candio High and Renville.
Avi, we got a new system in here recently, and so you might need to stay a little closer to the mic for people who are listening to be able to hear you.
Here, I'll stand right here. Is that good? Can y'all hear me?
Yep.
All right, how are we doing today?
Well, thank you.
Good. Okay, so I think the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to start out with our PowerPoint and then kind of move in between here. So, as mentioned on the agenda, I will be discussing our community health assessment for Renville, Candy, Ohio, and Renville counties. As you know, we do this and a lot of our public health efforts together, and this is one of them. So, a CHA is a community health assessment. Basically, it is basically it's an assessment put together by both counties where we collect data and determine county needs for healthcare. We have multiple data sources, sources that range from, as we say, womb to tomb. So we collect data from a student health survey, adult health survey, WIC data, state data, local county data. I mean, you can imagine it, we've got the data for it. And we take that information and we put it together into a cohesive assessment. And we do this every 5 years. It is a state requirement. And once we put together our CHA, or our community health assessment, we will meet with we will meet with our stakeholders, we'll meet with our community leadership team, and we'll work with our Care to Achieve group in order to understand our top health priorities. This year, we kind of continued a trend that we started a few years ago, where we held something called a call to action, where we got our major stakeholders, people from the community, other folks who work in healthcare, got them together and started going through the community health assessment and asked, okay, what do you folks think are the most important health issues that we need to focus on for the next 5 years? And we got some interesting results. We also did some follow-up here in Wilmer with some of our more diverse ethnic communities, such as the Somali community and the Karen community. So we did some follow-up there, and we took their considerations in regards to what they believed were the most major health issues affecting them into consideration as well, and brought this to the larger group. So I'm going to go ahead and just pull up the community health assessment for a moment, just so that you can see what it looks like. This is available on the county website, and it is 41 pages. And before anybody gets too stressed out, it was 61 pages. So, we got it down to 41. I think we did pretty great. We also made sure that everything was kind of color coordinated, that was, relatively visual appealing based off of the county health board standards. So it's a pretty lengthy document. And for those of you who have the time or are interested, it is available for you to look at. For those of you who are shorter on time, we prepared this presentation for you and an infographic sheet that kind of helps sum things up a little bit better. So we did do a community health assessment 5 years ago. We got it right before the end of 2019. And then, we had something that kind of happened after 2019 that kind of affected healthcare and just the world in general with the pandemic. So healthcare priorities shifted, changes were made. And so this year we collected new information and we made changes. These were the top 20 identified in our call to action meeting. As you can see, some of them are highlighted in green. Those were the ones that were determined to be our top 10 focuses. There are more than 10 highlighted because we combined some of them together. as you can see from this slide here, these are the top 10 that we will present to our community leadership team. They are having a meeting on October 1st, and they will determine the top 2 to 4 health concerns that we will focus on for the next 5 years in our community health improvement plan. So we have our CHA, our community health assessment, and then we'll have our community health improvement plan. The plan is just saying, hey, these are the 2 to 4 that we've identified as our main priorities. We're still going to focus on the rest of them. They're all linked together. We still have programs for all of these. But these are the ones that we have to focus on the most. These are the ones that were identified as the most important. We haven't had that meeting yet.
If I may interrupt you just for a moment, thank you. We all just came from fall policy meeting, and this is a very similar process, really, when you think about it, to what we did in fall policy. We have our platform, so things don't go off our platform, but out of the platform, we have to pick our priorities that we want our policy analysts to tackle. And so, but before you go on, and maybe it is in there. Who's the team?
The community, the Care to Achieve team, which is who really drafts these plans and put these together, contains not only the supervisors from both counties, but also our health director, which is Carolyn, and our health officer, which is Sarah Benson, and then a few other people who work in public health or are public health affiliated. The community leadership team has a group of about 12 to 15 people. I can send that out to you later. I don't quite have it with me at this point.
But who does it consist of? Is it like medical personnel from,
Yep.
say,
Medical
Central
personnel.
Care and okay.
Yep. Central Care, we have people from the food shelf. We have folks from many walks of life who we consider to be part of the community leadership.
Thank you.
Yep. These are our top 10, as you can see here. We have child care access, mental well-being, access to care, adverse childhood experiences, otherwise known as ACEs, food security, housing stability, the aging population, adolescent health, adult substance use, and chronic disease. I'll go through these briefly. I'm not going to throw too many numbers at you, but the main thing that we need to tackle before we get into those is health equity, which is not only a state requirement, but also something that's just best practice public health. Which is working on promoting equity for healthcare. Does anybody know the difference between equality and equity?
I think your illustration shows it pretty well here.
Right, it's pretty good, right? So, equality, giving everybody the same thing, equity, giving people what they need in order to succeed. Pretty simple way of saying it. But the first thing that we'll talk about is childcare access. So we'll focus on Candy-Ojai County, but data for both counties is present. We have about 79 in-home licensed childcare providers and 12 licensed childcare centers in Candy-Ojai County, most of which are in Wilmer. However, this was something that was brought up as a major health concern during our call to action meeting. Inadequate childcare can lead to issues with child safety, child growth and development, and issues with the workforce in general. Next is mental well-being. We combined a few things with mental well-being, including suicide. As we can see here, this is something that affects both adults and students alike, with depression being pretty prevalent here in Candy-Ojai County at 28.4%, and quite a few students, over half, experiencing depressive-like symptoms or anxiety-related symptoms, according to the Student Health Survey. So this is self-reported data. Next is access to care. We in Candy-Ojai County are in blue. The state, which is the benchmark, is in gold. We have primary physicians 1 to every 1,080, dentists 1 through every 1,250, and mental health 1 to every 227. 7% of Candy-Ojai County citizens are uninsured versus 5% for Minnesota. A lot of people state that their issue with getting access to care mainly resides in dental care. They say they have a hard time finding dentists, and even when they do, they're not accepting new patients or that they're not taking their insurance. So just because we have the dentists doesn't mean that people are able to go and see them. Next is adverse childhood experiences, otherwise known as ACEs, and these are negative experiences that happen during childhood that can shape someone's life. So it starts with an adverse childhood experiences, and it just has an effect moving forward, which can include a social, emotional, and cognitive impairment, adoption of health risk behaviors, diseases, disabilities, or social problems, and all of this can lead to an early death. Some ACEs include physical abuse, sexual abuse, time in foster care, living with a heavy drinker, living with a substance abuser, living with an incarcerated adult. Any of these things can be considered an adverse childhood experience. Next would be food security. In Kandiyohi County, about a third of people need to drive at least 11 to 20 miles in order to get groceries, which can be quite difficult for those who don't have access to steady and reliable transportation. A lot of people are drinking a lot of sugar during a week, which can have a risk for type 2 diabetes and other chronic diseases. Overall, low-income residents and senior citizens are more likely to be affected by food security than the rest of the population. Next is housing stability. So in Kandiyohi County, about 3/4 of people own their homes, but this is much less for biracial and people of color, which is about 48% in Kandiyohi County. Unfortunately, many of the homes in our counties were built before 1970, which can lead to risk for things like lead paint exposure, kind of stuff. Housing prices have gone up, whereas wages have either stayed the same or gone down. So inflation's been hitting people pretty hard when it comes to housing. Next is the aging population. As we see, we have a graph here. We have quite a few people who are going to be exiting the workforce and are going to be entering the golden years, as we like to say. And a little bit further then after that, what we don't have is a lot of people to replace that workforce. We also don't have a lot of people who are able to work in things such as aging healthcare, right? Nursing homes, home care, that kind of thing. So the less people that we have and the more elderly people that need to be taken care of, the more of a healthcare issue this becomes. This also leads to other things such as chronic diseases, which include Alzheimer's and dementia. On the other hand, we also have concerns when it comes to adolescent health. So we combined a couple things here, which included substance use for our youth. The number one concern being the increase of use of opioids. Thankfully, we can go ahead and see that actually e-cig use has decreased by about 11%. Tobacco use is at an all-time low. That's a good thing, but students are drinking underage and they are using harder drugs such as Oxycontin, Percocet, and Vicodin. We also have an issue with bullying in our schools. Over half of students experience bullying, which can have long-term effects in their lives. There's also a concern when it comes to sexual health. 13% of students 12-year-old or younger have said that they have had sex. And almost 14% of people have reported having sex with 4 or more people in 2019. So it's quite an issue. Next, we have adult substance use. Our number one concern for adult substance use is drinking. About 6.4% of residents in Kandiyohi drink and drive. This is self-reported data, so it's probably higher. 13.1% of pregnant women report consuming alcohol within a month span of taking this survey. And 16.3% of Kandiyohi citizens binge drink. Another concern that we have, again, is opioids, which has seen an increase in use. Next is chronic disease. These are diseases such as heart disease, diabetes, asthma, Alzheimer's, dementia, these kind of things. This can affect people of any ages, but it does particularly affect older people and people with lower socioeconomic status. So those are kind of our top 10. I'll go ahead and bring it back to this slide right here. But this slide's great and everything. However, this is a little bit better visually. kind of gives you the top 10. And this is kind of something that we would hand out to people so that they understood the CHOP process and also have a better visual for what the top 10 look like without all the extra data.
Well, thank you for that truncated presentation, but albeit a good one. And I think it gives us a good idea of what the issues are. Do you have a timeline for that leadership team and for the selection of these priorities within this, the top 3 or 4 priorities?
Yes, sir, we do. We will select our top 2 to 4 on October 1st.
And then once they're selected, the next steps, remind us again what the next steps would be in the timeline for that.
So then after that, I will take the top 2 to 4, bring it to the Care to Achieve team, who are kind of the team that works on putting together these projects, and we will draft a community health improvement plan. Our goal is to have this done, I think, by spring 2025. That's the goal. Yeah, we want to, the requirement is to have it handed in by summer of 2025. But we like to get things done a bit early, just in case there needs to be some changes made. So we're planning on having it done by spring 2025.
And you said there's a requirement, and why is there a requirement?
It's just part of what allows us to get certain funding streams, I believe, and stuff like that. So,
all right. Thank you for answering those questions. Do you have other questions from anyone?
Commissioner Gardner,
Go ahead.
first. Excellent information. I would, as you said, I would really encourage the public to, if they get a chance to look through this, that they really should. Gives you an eye-opening look at our counties. Thank you.
Thank you.
Was it Commissioner Gardner or Commissioner Anderson? Commissioner Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Avi, thank you for this work. And I just want to mention, first of all, both Commissioner Emdek and I serve on the Candy, High Renville Community Health Board. And so we've pretty well seen this already. But I also want to publicly thank you for your work, for your ability to help us take this deeper dive into this work. I went through the priorities as you were going along, and I could have probably started talking about, well, this is because this and this is because of that. We'll spare everybody from that today. But I just wanted to acknowledge that this is really important work. If we have a healthy community, it makes things a whole lot easier. And coming out of the pandemic and being at the point that we are now, this is important stuff. And I just wanted to thank you for all of the work that you and the rest of the CHB have put into this.
I appreciate that, and I'm happy to do it. I'm happy to be here to be able to do this work, and thank you for listening to this presentation. And if anybody has any questions, you can always email me, and I'm happy to answer them.
Any other questions or comments? Well, you hit on 2 things that were addressed in one of my policy committees and part of the premier, which probably doesn't mean anything to you, one of our premier business partner presentations. And you'll hear more about it. But the one item was community transit. And Commissioner Anderson, I kind of wish you'd have been in the room for that one because it's becoming a greater problem as we age, and especially the baby boomers. And it was really illustrated for me as one of the members of the Transportation Policy Committee since the last time we saw him in January was using sight impaired staff. And he says, I am now one of those guys that has to depend on transit. And so the state of Minnesota has asked for the Transportation Policy Committee to find a member, a county commissioner from rural Minnesota, to serve on an advisory board to Minnesota Department of Transportation for those matters. The other one is one of our presenters provided and we'll hear more about this actually through AMC, but I'm going to encourage all counties to listen to it too. There is a program available for Medicaid recipients to receive food, almost like I'll call it a DoorDash thing. It's not DoorDash. It's a nonprofit company that uses FedEx actually to deliver like 16 meals at a time that are designed for people that have specific health issues like diabetes or heart problems or whatever, so they can, and they don't get to pick all potato chips. So they get the meal that is chosen for them based on their health. And so I think, the timing is great for this presentation. All right, with that, I'd like to thank you for coming in and presenting this update.
Thank you very much, and I hope you all have a good rest of your day.
Oh, that's right. There has been a request for a short break, a couple of them. We will reconvene the Kennewick County Board of Commissioners meeting. Up next on our agenda is to approve the recommendation for 2025 health insurance policy for the county. Administrator Baker.
Good morning, Kelsey Baker, Kennewick County Administrator. I'm happy to report on our 2025 health insurance today. Before you in your packet is requesting approval on the recommendation for a change for 2025 health insurance. We've worked with National Insurance Services for many years. We were nearing our 3-year rate cap, and so NIS recommended that we go out for RFPs, requests for proposals, and we received very competitive bids. We received multiple bids throughout that. One of those bids, and you can see in your board packet, was from Southwest West Central Cooperative. The other competitive one was from Blue Cross Blue Shield. So I'm just going to go over a few highlights that are included in your board packet. That top graph, and if you can see the numbers, they're $1,150.78, which would be your premium. Okay, so just there's a little mishap for formatting there. But so the top half, this includes the health insurance reset that the board approved to go into effect for January 1st, 2024. So those reset calculations are included then within the Southwest Co-op bid, and then also the Blue Cross Blue Shield. Blue Cross Blue Shields. Can't have to say that. And so the staff recommendation would be to go with Blue Cross Blue Shield. Their proposal was a 7.2% decrease compared to staying within Southwest and Co-op, and that would have been a 5% increase. They both did cap rates for second year, very close together. One was 14.5, the other was 14.9. There were many different attributes that went into this decision. So we called a health insurance committee, which has 2 commissioners that sit on there, administration staff, and then staff that represent union, non-union, and the majority of the groups. And so we presented the 2 options that you see before you. And the committee's recommendation was also to go with Blue Cross and Blue Shields. And so I do think with the 7% decrease, that would be the best option for the employees in the county to move forward. So that's what I would recommend moving with. And this is also leaving the co-op that we have been a part of for many years. So we would be essentially on our own, which we still think with the 7.2% decrease is a healthy way to go.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Gardner, you and I both sat in on that. Do you have any follow-up you want to add to this conversation?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kelsey, thank you. And on behalf of, I think, everybody, we're exceptionally pleased, or should be, that overall the competitiveness of all of the bids was pretty much across the board. It is a difficult thing to think about leaving the cooperative, but we're talking about a 1.9, nearly $2 million difference over 2 years in what overall premiums would be. That's just total premiums, not any other breakout other than that between employer and employee. And it's important to note that the RFP specifically called for equivalent coverage to matching coverage to what we already had. And so this truly is an apples to apples. Essentially, what you're going to see in year 2 of premiums through Blue Cross Blue Shield, we would be seeing those same amounts next year, pretty much. And so we're basically, gaining a year back on potential rate increases, and this is going to be a good thing for everybody, I think.
At least for the next 2 years, because it's actually a deduct this 7%.
Correct,
but then it'd likely be 14%.
The premium amounts. What I'm saying is that the premium amounts would be this. I want to say 1150 next next year, if we stayed with the cooperative, they won't be that until year 2 with Blue Cross Blue Shield.
And so one of the things that we probably should point out, there was, we were gonna go back and ask, if I remember right, about the incentives for being part of a health club or something like that. Was that it? Did we get any additional information on
We
that?
did. We will receive funding, and it's 50,000
Okay.
for those plans, which I don't know all the details of that. But the overall incentive to go with Blue Cross Blue Shields and is more of an appealing incentive than to go with them for 2 years.
And I think it's important to note, I don't think it's gonna have a huge impact, but it's important to note that's based on the number of employees in the plan right now. And if somebody who maybe are using a partner or spouse's insurance plan right now for their insurance, if they decide that they like this better, that could impact it, but I don't think it's gonna be a huge impact. Am I correct in that?
Yes, and sometimes there's many things that go into those calculations, and I am not a skilled health insurance, so I'm not going to stand up here and act like I know everything. However, when we did that health insurance reset, the goal for us was to get more employees on our plan. So we have so many contracts. We have around 370 contracts, give or take. That's not an exact number. And then when we did that health insurance reset, we did gain employees to to be added to our plans, so which is beneficial. And so when we take a look at our organization and look at our employee wellness incentives, our health insurance, our benefits, that is in that whole grand circle of recruitment and retention. And so we have to look at that. And I think the work that we've been doing with our administration office and looking at the health insurance and creating a wellness committee will hopefully incentivize staff to say, oh, our employer cares about us. We want to be healthy. We want to be proactive. And so in return, can it move the dial a lot? Maybe not necessarily, but it moves the dial in some positive fashion for companies to look at us and maybe be a little bit more appealing. Health insurance is very cumbersome in today's world, but I do think it also speaks to the organization side of things as well. When you have healthier employees overall, they're healthier productivity. And so those are two facets. You look at that business side of things and then you look at the organization side. You want to provide equitable health insurance for our employees. And then when we look from the organization side, we also want to provide equitable opportunities for our employees to accomplish those things as well.
Yeah, and as we did the reset, it seems like more than a year ago now, but about a year ago, one of the things that was obvious to us was that, especially for families, it was a difficult buy-in on the insurance side of it. And we were losing staff because of that. And so now I think we brought more equity to the plans within our big plan, the individuals within it. Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And exactly to your point, Kelsey, I think I understood that because we did the reset, we had more people come onto the plan who, generally speaking, were healthier. And that was looked upon with favor by the companies that came in and gave us quotes. And also, it's really competitive in that market right now.
Correct. And our plans, there's a little difference. Our premiums might be high, but our overall health insurance plans are very accommodating. We have a wide span of coverage. We have a wide span of things that will be covered. So just to clarify that, because I always try to clarify that with myself, that our premiums might be high, but our overall plans that we have and we do provide to our employees are very accommodating. And so in your board packet too, and we wanted to be transparent with this, the rates for both with Southwest, the co-op, and then Blue Cross Blue Shields. These would be the rates going into 2025. So you can see the rates up from 2024 to 2025. The other thing I would want to note, because we have a 7.2% decrease, doesn't mean that that's going to affect the overall levy. So our health insurance fund is a separate fund compared to our bottom line operating fund balances. And so the dollars that we would be saving for 2025 health insurance will go right back into our health insurance fund. So we took around $750,000 from the health insurance fund to do the reset for 2024. Essentially, the dollars that we're now saving to go into 2025 will go back into that health insurance fund plus a little bit more. So we've really been made whole with this transition as well, if the board approves.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you said, the county has gone with the Southwest Central Cooperative for many, many years. And I've always been under the impression we've done well with them. And they served us really well. So I'm a little taken back. I was surprised that there would be this big a difference. Are there any additional downsides at this point of basically dropping out of that and going with the Blue Cross Blue Shield?
Really, it was that $500 incentive. And we asked the committee what their thoughts were. What did they hear from their coworkers, the members? And that didn't rank very high. And so we feel that overall we are comfortable leaving the co-op with that. I think everyone within that committee felt comfortable moving forward. And so we are moving forward together in this.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I feel uncomfortable with this, but I understand. I see what you're saying. Now, the commitment going forward with the switch is again how many years? And if after that, do we close the door on the Southwest Central Cooperative? That down the road things change. Can we possibly get back into that, or would we ever want to?
I don't know if we would close the door altogether. I guess I can't always predict the future, but I think at this point we are moving forward without the co-op.
And there are other things the co-op offers, of course, besides
Sure.
health insurance. So we would retain those working
Good
relations with them.
And there, if I may,
Go ahead.
their situation is a little different in that they're now part of a larger group of like organizations that are working together. That's why their rates were as competitive as they were to begin with. And I have a fond spot in my heart for the cooperative. In my professional life, they have been a client of mine for 15 years now, and that doesn't play one way or the other into this. But I know the folks down there, and the numbers speak for themselves. I think the intent would be in 2 years to go back out on another RFP, and they would have an opportunity to sharpen their pencil at that time.
Thank you. That's information. I'm not on that committee, and this is not my area of expertise neither. So I appreciate that feedback.
The other thing that was, at least it was a concern of mine, but I think it was a concern of everybody, is to make sure that our network remained broad. Not that all of a sudden we have to stay within Kansas County or within Centricare's region or whatever. Our network is still very comprehensive. So.
So my question, and I did talk to you about it before, it doesn't change, the plans are the same. We're comparing apples to apples, not
Correct.
different types.
Yep. And our HR generalist benefits coordinator, Lisa Weiss, will go over all of this information as well for open enrollment, which will be coming up in October.
Okay, thank you.
And so the ask today is to approve moving forward with Blue Cross Blue Shield with the proposal of the 7.2% decrease, along with approving the rates to go into effect January 1st, 2025.
So you've heard the recommendation from staff. I'd entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I so move.
Commissioner Dale Anderson moves on the health insurance plan. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Commissioner Dwayne Anderson seconds. All in favor? Any further discussion or questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Both same sign. Motion carries. All right. Preliminary budget.
So today I would be asking for approval of the 2025 preliminary budget for an 8.5% I included the overall IFS report so that you have that for your copies. And then if you scroll all the way down to the resolution 2024-30, it gives the final levy amounts in there. So it'd be 41,448,434. That's an 8.5% increase from 24 to 25's levy. Again, when the board approves the preliminary levy, it doesn't mean we can go up for the final. It only means we can go down. From the last board meeting to today, based off the conversation and the recommendation, I went back up to that 8.5%. I know not all are there for the final, but those conversations can continue. We can continue fine tuning some of those numbers and look at the budget. And then I put in there that we would hold our Truth and Taxation meeting December 3rd, 2024 at 6 p.m. That is not the AMC annual conference. I did check on.
And that is when this budget will become final. And again, to reiterate what Administrator Baker said is that if we approve this today with resolution 2024-30, it doesn't mean that it's going to end at 8.5%. It just means it can't go beyond 8.5%. So, and I would entertain a motion on resolution 2024-30.
Mr. Chair, I would offer the motion to approve resolution 2024-30.
Commissioner Gardner moves on resolution 2024-30 for the approval of the preliminary budget. Do I hear a second?
So Chair, I'll second that.
Mr. Berg seconds. Further discussion or questions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. All right, I think that brings us to the end of our regular items on the agenda, and we're going to go to reports. Do we need a few minutes to prepare for that, or are we ready to? Well, we're 4 minutes within schedule. Perfect.
Mr. Chair, I can start.
Please do.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have had a busy last several weeks, and it's going to, now that summer's over, we're getting back to a little bit more regular schedule with some of our board and committee meetings, and some of those, unfortunately, have had some conflicts with conferences and so forth that we've been undergoing. Very briefly, I attended the League of Women Voters Hot Topics event last week, where they had Ben Winchester, who is a researcher and sociologist with University of Minnesota Extension. And this was specifically on the topic of housing in rural communities. It was interesting in that Ben has, through his research, kind of identified that workforce housing in our communities already exists, but it's just that older folks like most of ourselves are still living in those houses. We don't have that normal churn of housing opportunities right now because folks are staying in their homes longer. They're wanting to age in place more, and we kind of have an imbalance in that. Rather than them transitioning to senior housing and opening those up, those family homes up to folks who are coming up the ladder and families and so forth. Ben has talked about debunking what's called the brain drain from rural communities for years. He maintains that there's a brain gain because people want to come back to these places. The money quote for me in all of this was when he said, if rural towns are dying, then why can't people who want to move there find a place to live? So we still have workforce housing issues to work through, but a lot of that is going to depend, and it's been identified within the housing study, which, incredibly is almost 2 years old by now, that we have a great need for transitional senior housing, both market rate and those types of more advanced facilities. So that's going to be, I think, an interesting topic that we're going to be not seeing the end of anytime soon. AMC Policy Conference. I chair the General Government Committee. We spend our time developing potential priorities for consideration for the next legislative session on matters important to counties. I did speak on the need, even though it is not going to be a priority of our county, we wanted of our committee. We wanted to be supportive of the Public Health and Human Services Committee's priority around technology modernization. Recently, we had the work session where all of us were at a computer screen, a green screen, and I was just waiting for the Oregon Trail thing to come across that said we have died of dysentery. And we spoke a little bit about the need for that and bringing that in front of my committee. And I understand that that also happened in the Public Safety Committee as well. That this is really a concern across the entire state in that DHS modernization of their computer systems just isn't happening. When you have systems that are 20 and 30 years old, and some of the people who are trying to use those systems are not that old, then there's a problem. It's just really ineffective and inefficient. We have now, I believe, where we used to need one worker to be able to process all of these different claims. Now we have three that have to do it. So it affects our workforces as well, which in turn affects our levies, not just here, but in every county across the state. So I was happy to be able to speak on that. And finally, I just wanted to mention in passing the recent passing of former Sheriff Larry Kleinheisen. Larry was the deputy sheriff hired as a deputy in 1966, and 2 years later he was appointed as deputy sheriff. He served for 29 years. The last time I ran across Larry was when I was campaigning, actually, 4 years ago. He and Sally invited me in, and I had a nice conversation with him, and he had a great heart for Candy-Ojai County and for public safety and public service, and he will be greatly missed. And that's what I wanted to touch on today.
Thank you, Commissioner Gardner. Commissioner Gail Anderson?
Sure, I can go. Just a couple of things. The Historical Society had a meeting on Monday the 9th. I was not able to attend. I had another meeting I had to be at, so I couldn't go. But the one thing I wanted to bring out is they are looking for a collection manager position. It's a 25 to 30 hours a week position. So if anybody is interested in helping out with that, contact the Historical Society. They're looking for a new person to join their team. So the only other thing I really had on my 2 weeks is AMC conference, and it is really a great way to have input, I think, into what we can change or hopefully change. And it was interesting. It was 9/11, so we went around the room, and everybody had to say where they were at or what they were doing when 9/11 happened, and it was really kind of eerie to me. Everybody in our group is public safety. A lot of them all have history or family or something that's in public safety. They've all been a sheriff or they've been a first responder or they've been all part of that. There's only a few of us that are just commissioners, which is kind of interesting. But it was interesting. It's been many, many, many years, but there were still a few people that just plain could not answer the question because they were so still emotionally disturbed from that situation they just couldn't answer. And the other thing is to hear a couple people say that they were 2 years old or 3 years old when that happened. That was kind of interesting. But everybody in the room knew where they were, other than those young people that were too young to remember, knew exactly what they were doing and what they were, where they were when that happened. So, I mean, history, we always say is history, but it does affect our world in the way things change and the way things have happened. So it was We actually took about a half an hour longer than we were supposed to do that, but I thought it was really kind of an interesting as part of our committee. The other thing that we did go around the room and ask what was the most important things that we felt in our county, and my thing that I think I was the only one that brought it up, but I still think it's one of the biggest things that we're going to eventually at some point in time regret that we aren't addressing, and that's the radar gap. I really think we're going to get in trouble. We're going to have lives lost, and people are going to be very much affected by our radar gap problem. So I'm hoping that that'll get brought back up as a big top issue again, either in December or next year. The other thing that was talked about a lot that was really is another big important thing is the radio system that everybody in the state uses, and the cost in updating of that radio system. That was one thing we spent a lot of time discussing. I ran into Corky on a break, and I said I was amazed. We had probably the biggest discussion. I mean, I've only been in it 2 years, but last year nobody hardly said a thing, and this year everybody was talking. So that was really good. We had way better discussion in our committees about different things. But we came up with 4 priorities, and it was a great conversation and a great time to visit and be part of the whole state. I enjoyed the conferences. That's all I have.
Commissioner Dwayne Anderson.
All right, so I just had a few meetings. So on September 9th, we did our Economic Development Commission broadband committee met. And we're just pretty much talking about projects that are going on in the county, and hopefully our next round of grant applications gets approved soon. We were told in September here they're supposed to be either approved or denied, or we'll find out what's going on. So we all have our fingers crossed that we get our grants approved that we've applied for. Then from September 11th through the 13th, we had our fall policy conference, and I went to that. I had to leave early on September 13th for Central Minnesota Jobs and Training Services meeting. And with that one, our forensic audit has been completed. It's been turned over to DEED for them to look at it and then come up with their recommendations going forward. But it sounds like basically all they found is that the money has been mostly accounted for now. Just basically what happened was the beans were put in the wrong jars, or maybe the beans weren't even put in jars properly. So that's a sigh of relief for everybody that's on that committee, and so we're moving forward, and I think things will look better as we go ahead on that committee. So
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As Commissioner Dale Anderson was saying, we had really good conversations as well in our committee. There's so many issues taking place now, and being the legislative, the main purpose is to look at our legislative agenda coming up. That last year, not much was accomplished in many areas, and a lot of these things are still going to be on the plate, but maybe tweaked differently. As far as the Health and Human Services Committee that I'm on, Commissioner Gardner made some comments about the technology improvements, and again, that is very top of our priority as well, pushing that through. Hopefully we can make some progress on that. Big price tag on that, that's for sure. And that's one reason I'm sure that it's going to be even harder this year than last year to go forward on some of that. So anyway, our conference was excellent, and took actually 3 days of our week for all the commissioners. So I did have a Prime West meeting on the 5th, National Day meeting. Nothing really to report on that for the public at this point, and for you as well, if to any action item. But it made me think that there are so many other things going on in our community that I'd like to be able to attend some of those. And often you have so many other meetings going on. I think that was the hot topic day, I believe, and I wanted to be the League of Women Voters for that as well. I had a PAC4 for Families meeting, and they have excellent speakers there, and they have the retreat coming up now on the 23rd of this month. And one last thing, I attended the Pheasants Forever dedication of land with the DNR on Lake Eleanor. And Lake Eleanor, for everybody's information, is kind of north of Lake Wakanda, northeast of Lake Wakanda. And we had a good turnout there, and Commissioner MDEC was there as well, and maybe you can make some comments on that going forward too. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Administrator Baker, do you have anything?
We are going to have our space study kickoff next Tuesday afternoon. I pulled some representatives from each of the three buildings, along with Commissioner Dale Anderson and the board chair who sit on the current facilities committee. And so I'll be sending some information out to all staff regarding that process, even though we're not going to be doing public works and all of our county buildings. I'll still send it to all county employees so that they know what's going on. And I think that's it.
All right. So I, along with Commissioner Dwayne, I think that was since our last meeting, did a couple of HRA tours of some of our HRA properties and Candy Ojai, Atwater. I made it to the New London one, did not make it to the Pennock and Raymond. So we did that and found out something I didn't know in terms of some very nice properties that in all these communities, that some of them that were built by HRA have now been sold to a private owner. So the rent is that's possible. And then went on Thursday the 5th. They attended the Prairie Stars Music Under the Stars at the Prairie Woods Environmental Learning Center. And that was a huge, huge success. I think the last number I read was over $95,000 raised that evening, and which blows away by several times the previous high amount for a Prairie Stars event, which will be going to the preschool that is out there. On the 6th, I, along with Commissioner Gardner, already mentioned or Berger mentioned the Lake Eleanor WMA dedication. On the 9th, the county insurance meeting already discussed, the broadband committee, and then in the evening was planning and zoning. And then fall policy. The one thing in fall policy that I'll bring up, and I apologize because I already said something earlier, but we had a long, robust discussion regarding wetland replacement credits, which we're in big trouble with wetland replacements. Some districts, I mean, one project could eat up all the rest of the credits that are left in, say, our district. Some are already down to zero. And so it's a big, big issue. There was a lot of discussion about making it a line item priority, which, there was support for it, but probably not yet at this time because we'd certainly have to have the same kind of request from Bowser to be able to do that if we don't have an agency support then as a committee. So we talked about how we need to really emphasize with our legislators, and some of them will be new. It's going to have to be a whole new education process that we have to go through, especially in light of the chair of the House Transportation Committee is not seeking re-election, nor is the chair of the Capital Investment or the Bonding Committee, Representative Erdahl. So that bonding bill is critically important, and so we're going to have to see who the new leadership is that we deal with there. And that is all I have. So,
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
Yes, I'd like to go back to one other thing I'd like to comment on, just for information, everybody on the board, that the 18 County Mental Health Consortium has completed its joint powers agreement, and that's a big step, but it's not officially done yet. And they have their own attorney at this point, and the attorney has put that together. And it's in the process of all the counties that will be sending it to their county attorney to review, to see if it fits for our county and if there's any other questions about that. And we are hoping to deal with that at our annual meeting on the 13th. So we're asking all the counties to try to address that and approve that if it looks, or come back to that meeting with additions that there are changes that are needed. So that'll be probably on our agenda for the next meeting. And if it looks one way or the other, hopefully we'll have that together. So thank you.
All right, if there's nothing else to come before the board, we will adjourn.